What if I told you that the end of the world has already happened, not just once, but many times? From devastating floods to fiery skies and cosmic battles, myths about the apocalypse aren't just ancient fantasies. They may be humanity's way of remembering real catastrophes. Events so massive and traumatic that they shaped not only the course of history, but also the stories we've passed down for generations. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. What if one of history's most devastating disasters didn't just inspire one myth, but connected multiple apocalyptic stories across the world? Myths like the Mayan apocalypse, the Viking Ragnarök, and even the plagues of Revelation might all share unexpected ties to a forgotten global event. Welcome to Armchair Archaeology, where we uncover the secrets of the past to better understand the present. In today's episode, we'll explore how ancient myths of destruction and rebirth, stories of floods, volcanic winters, and battles between gods might be linked to real historical events. Stick with us until the end, because we'll reveal a surprising connection between these myths and a catastrophe so massive that its effects were felt across continents. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Armchair Archaeology and hit the bell icon to join our community of curious minds. By subscribing, you'll never miss a chance to explore the mysteries of the past with us. Apocalyptic myths are universal, appearing in cultures across the globe and throughout history. Stories of fire consuming the skies, floods that wipe out civilizations, and battles between gods and monsters aren't just dramatic tales. They reflect humanity's deep fears of chaos and destruction. Yet, these myths are not just about endings. They often carry a message of survival and renewal, showing how people throughout history have turned disaster into a story of hope. The Epic of Gilgamesh, one of the world's oldest written stories, tells of a catastrophic flood sent by the gods to punish humanity. A man named Utnapishtim is warned to build a massive boat to save himself, his family, and animals. This tale bears striking similarities to the biblical story of Noah's Ark, but both may share the same historical root. Archaeologists have discovered evidence of a massive flood in the Mesopotamian region around 3000 BCE, which would have devastated local communities. For those who experienced it, the flood likely felt like the end of the world. Even oral traditions, which predate written records, may hold echoes of real disasters. Aboriginal myths in Australia describe seas rising and coastlines sinking, forcing communities to flee inland. Researchers believe these stories, passed down for over 10,000 years, describe the sea level rise that occurred at the end of the Ice Age. Picture a world where the coastline retreats each day, swallowing entire villages, forcing people to flee inland with only the essentials. Such myths suggest that ancient peoples preserved their history by embedding real events into their stories of destruction and survival. By turning catastrophe into mythology, ancient cultures found ways to make sense of the chaos around them. These stories didn't just explain disasters, they helped people process loss, endure hardship, and hope for a fresh start. Speaking of uncovering the secrets of the past, if you're fascinated by ancient myths and lost civilizations, you'll love Secrets of the Ancient World, Mysteries, Technologies, and Lost Civilizations. This ebook goes deep into the rise and fall of empires, advanced ancient technologies, and legendary artifacts. The link is in the pinned comment. Don't miss it. When 2012 approached, many believed the Mayan calendar had predicted the apocalypse, fueling global panic and wild doomsday theories. Remember the viral memes and countdown parties? It's fascinating how a misinterpretation of an ancient calendar captured modern imagination. But for the Mayans, December 21st, 2012 wasn't about destruction. It was a moment of transition. The date marked the end of a Baktun, a 394-year cycle in their long-count calendar, and the beginning of a new one. Think of it as one chapter in a larger book of cosmic cycles. To the Mayans, endings weren't final. They were part of a cycle of renewal. Still, Mayan mythology contains vivid stories of apocalyptic destruction. In their sacred text, the Popol Vuh, previous worlds are destroyed by floods, fire, and darkness. These myths reflect their understanding of time as cyclical, but they also seem to echo real events. Severe drought struck the Mayan civilization in the 9th century CE, leading to famine and the collapse of major cities. For those who lived through these environmental disasters, it must have felt like the world was truly ending. Another potential influence on Mayan apocalyptic myths is a volcanic eruption that occurred in 540 CE. This massive event darkened the skies, caused global cooling, and triggered crop failures. A volcanic winter occurs when massive amounts of volcanic ash and gases are released into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight. This causes global temperatures to drop, leading to widespread agricultural failure. Archaeologists believe the ash from this volcanic winter disrupted life across Central America, further contributing to the Mayans' stories of world-ending darkness. Mayan apocalyptic thinking wasn't focused on destruction alone. It was intertwined with the idea of rebirth. To them, the end of a cycle brought the promise of a new beginning. This perspective transforms their myths into something greater, a testament to how ancient cultures found meaning and renewal in even the most devastating events. But the Mayans weren't alone in their apocalyptic imagination. Across the globe, the Norse were crafting their own vision of the end times, a tale of fire, ice, and rebirth. Few myths capture the imagination quite like Ragnarök, the Norse vision of the apocalypse. It tells of a final battle where gods, giants, and monsters clash, ending with fire consuming the world and the earth sinking into the sea. But Ragnarök isn't just about destruction. After the chaos, the world is reborn, green and fertile, under a new sun. The myth begins with the Fimbul winter, a brutal and unrelenting winter lasting for years. This term comes from Norse mythology and describes a period of extreme cold and darkness, a prelude to Ragnarök, the Norse apocalypse. Scientists believe this imagery may reflect a real event, the volcanic eruption of 536 CE. This catastrophic eruption released vast amounts of ash into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing a global cooling event. Imagine waking up to a sky so dim that it feels like permanent twilight, with crops failing and a chill in the air that refuses to leave. Over the following decade, crops failed, famine spread, and societies across Europe suffered immensely. In Scandinavia, tree ring evidence shows that this was one of the coldest and most difficult periods in recorded history. For the Norse, living through such extreme conditions would have felt like the world itself was dying. The sun dimmed, the earth froze, and survival became uncertain. It's no wonder that these experiences may have inspired myths of apocalyptic winters and cosmic battles, reflecting both the hardship and the hope for renewal that followed. In the end, Ragnarök isn't a story of total annihilation. It's a promise of rebirth. After the fire and ice, life begins again, and a new world rises from the ruins of the old. This theme of destruction, followed by renewal, resonates across cultures, showing how humans have always used stories to find meaning in catastrophe and to imagine a brighter future. Curious about more incredible insights into the ancient world? Check out Secrets of the Ancient World to uncover the mysteries behind engineering marvels, unsolved puzzles like the Nazca Lines, and even how ancient medicine rivaled modern advancements. Find the link in the pinned comment below. The Book of Revelation is one of the most vivid and influential apocalyptic texts ever written, composed around 95 CE. During a time of Roman persecution, it paints a dramatic picture of the end of days, rivers turning to blood, plagues sweeping the earth, and the four horsemen bringing conquest, war, famine, and death. These powerful images have shaped how people imagine the apocalypse for nearly 2 millennia. But Revelation's imagery isn't just symbolic, it reflects the political and environmental crises of its time. Scholars believe the beast, described in the text, represents Emperor Nero, whose cruelty and persecution of Christians left an enduring scar on early communities. The disasters mentioned, like famine and earthquakes, weren't purely allegorical either. They were real threats faced by the Roman Empire, and they may have heightened the sense that the world was on the brink of collapse. Natural disasters also played a role in shaping the apocalyptic vision of Revelation. Just a few years earlier, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE left entire cities buried in ash. To the people of the ancient Mediterranean, such a catastrophic event could easily be seen as divine judgment. Even decades later, the memory of Vesuvius would have remained fresh, especially for Christian communities interpreting natural disasters as signs of the end times. Yet, despite its terrifying imagery, Revelation ends on a hopeful note. After the destruction comes a new heaven and a new earth, a perfect paradise where suffering is no more. This promise of renewal has ensured the text's enduring influence, offering not just a warning of destruction, but also a vision of redemption. Apocalyptic myths often combine fear with hope, reflecting humanity's ability to find meaning in chaos. Could this balance explain why such stories resonate across cultures? Let's continue to explore. Among the oldest apocalyptic stories is the flood myth in the Epic of Gilgamesh. In this tale, the gods, angered by humanity's behavior, send a catastrophic flood to destroy the world. A man named Utnapishtim is warned in advance and builds a massive boat to save his family and animals. This story bears a striking resemblance to the biblical tale of Noah's Ark, but both may stem from a shared historical event. Archaeologists studying sediment layers near the Euphrates River have uncovered evidence of a massive flood around 3000 BCE. This flood would have devastated communities in the region, submerging settlements and forcing survivors to start over. To the people who lived through it, such an event could easily have felt like the end of the world, leaving a lasting impression that eventually found its way into myth. Flood stories aren't unique to Mesopotamia. In Hindu mythology, Vishnu saves humanity by warning Manu, the ancestor of all humans, about a great deluge. Similar flood myths appear in Mesoamerican traditions and indigenous Australian oral histories, all describing devastating waters that reshaped their worlds. One particularly intriguing possibility comes from the Black Sea region. Around 5600 BCE, melting Ice Age glaciers caused seawater to rush into the Black Sea basin, dramatically expanding its shoreline. Scientists believe this event displaced thousands of people, an upheaval so traumatic that it may have seeded flood legends across Europe and the Near East. Flood myths not only explain natural disasters, they also carry a profound message of survival. These stories suggest that even in the face of overwhelming destruction, life continues. The question is, are these myths scattered coincidences, or do they reveal a shared memory of ancient catastrophes? As we delve deeper, the connections become even clearer. In Hindu cosmology, the universe moves through endless cycles of creation, destruction, and renewal, divided into 4 great ages known as Yugas. The final age, the Kali Yuga, is a time of chaos, moral decay, and conflict. It ends with the destruction of the world as we know it, paving the way for the next cycle of creation. Unlike linear apocalyptic myths, the Hindu perspective treats destruction as a necessary step for renewal, a process as inevitable as the changing of seasons. This cyclical view of time reflects real patterns of rise and fall in history. The collapse of the Indus Valley civilization around 1900 BCE, for example, may have felt like the Kali Yuga unfolding in real life. Once one of the world's most advanced societies, the Indus Valley cities fell into ruin, likely due to a combination of prolonged drought, shifting trade networks, and social upheaval. For those who witnessed its decline, it must have seemed like the end of an era, or even the end of the world. Hindu mythology also features a flood story, where the god Vishnu, in the form of a giant fish, warns Manu, the ancestor of humanity, to build a boat to survive a great deluge. This story bears striking similarities to other flood myths, like those of Mesopotamia and the Bible, may reflect shared memories of catastrophic flooding events. In Hindu belief, the Kali Yuga does not represent total annihilation, but rather a transition into a brighter future. This idea of destruction leading to rebirth, deeply embedded in the mythology, resonates with the cyclical themes found in other cultures. Could these parallels suggest a universal human need to find meaning in catastrophe? As we'll see, the connections only grow stronger. For the ancient Egyptians, the world was in constant danger of being plunged into chaos. This threat was embodied by Apophis, a monstrous serpent who tried to devour the sun god Ra as he journeyed across the sky each night. Every sunrise was a victory over destruction, a sign that order had been restored for now. But the Egyptians didn't just imagine cosmic destruction. They also told stories of humanity's near annihilation. In one myth, the sun god Ra grows angry with humanity's rebellion and unleashes his powerful eye, the goddess Sekhmet, to punish them. Sekhmet's rampage is so destructive that it nearly wipes out all of humankind. To stop her, Ra tricks her by flooding the earth with red beer, which she mistakes for blood, and drinks until she becomes too intoxicated to continue. These myths of destruction were more than symbolic. Ancient Egypt faced real catastrophes that would have felt apocalyptic to its people. For instance, the collapse of the Old Kingdom around 2200 BCE, ushering in the First Intermediate Period, was driven by prolonged droughts, political unrest, and famine. Archaeological evidence from this time reveals significant climate instability, and for those who lived through it, the loss of centralized power and resources may have felt like the world itself was falling apart. Despite their focus on chaos and destruction, Egyptian mythology always balanced these themes with rebirth. Each night's battle between Ra and Apophis ended with the sun rising again, a reminder that order could be restored. This duality, destruction followed by renewal, reflects a theme found in apocalyptic myths worldwide. Could this belief in resilience be why these stories continue to resonate even thousands of years later? Around 1200 BCE, the ancient world experienced one of the most catastrophic events in history, the Late Bronze Age collapse. Civilizations that had thrived for centuries, like the Mycenaeans in Greece, the Hittites in Anatolia, and even the Egyptians, fell into ruin. Cities were abandoned, trade networks vanished, and literacy declined. For those who lived through it, it must have seemed like the end of the world. The collapse wasn't caused by a single event, but a chain reaction of disasters. Prolonged droughts devastated agriculture, leading to famine and widespread unrest. Earthquakes struck the eastern Mediterranean, reducing cities to rubble. Adding to the chaos were the mysterious Sea Peoples, groups of seafaring invaders who attacked coastal settlements and destabilized entire regions. In short, the Late Bronze Age collapse was a perfect storm of environmental disasters, social upheaval, and invasions. Each of these factors alone would have been devastating, but together they created a perfect storm that overwhelmed even the most powerful societies. One of the most revealing accounts comes from Pharaoh Ramses III, who described the Sea Peoples as an unstoppable force that threatened Egypt itself. Although Egypt survived, it was weakened significantly, and its influence in the region waned. Archaeological evidence, including destroyed cities and abandoned settlements, paints a vivid picture of how entire civilizations unraveled under these pressures. What makes the Late Bronze Age collapse particularly intriguing is how it may have inspired myths of apocalyptic destruction. The connection between real disasters and myths doesn't stop there. Natural catastrophes have shaped apocalyptic storytelling in profound ways, from volcanic eruptions to devastating earthquakes. Stories of lost civilizations, like Atlantis, and myths of fire, famine, and upheaval may echo this period of widespread chaos. The collapse wasn't just a historical turning point, it became part of humanity's collective memory, preserved in myths that warned of what happens when the world falls apart. Could this ancient catastrophe be one of the earliest shared memories of apocalypse? What do you think? Have you heard of myths in your culture that might be linked to real historical events? Let us know in the comments. As we'll see, the idea of destruction and renewal runs deeper than we realize. Want to take your exploration even further? My ebook, Secrets of the Ancient World, brings together the most fascinating discoveries and mysteries from our ancient past. Perfect for curious minds like yours. It's a deep dive into the wonders and wisdom of history. Grab your copy using the link in the pinned comment. Around 74,000 years ago, one of the largest volcanic eruptions in Earth's history occurred at Mount Toba in what is now Indonesia. This supervolcano ejected so much ash into the atmosphere that it triggered a volcanic winter, plunging the planet into darkness and causing global temperatures to drop drastically. For years, crops withered, ecosystems collapsed, and animals and humans struggled to survive. Genetic studies reveal that the aftermath was catastrophic. The human population may have dwindled to as few as 10,000 individuals. Scientists call this a genetic bottleneck, a sharp reduction in genetic diversity caused by a major event. For those who lived through this apocalyptic event, the sun would have appeared dimmed for years, shrouded by volcanic ash. It's not difficult to imagine how such a catastrophe could inspire early myths of world-ending darkness and fiery skies. Similar events occurred on a smaller scale throughout history, leaving marks on civilizations and myths alike. For instance, the eruption of the Thera volcano, modern-day Santorini, around 1600 BCE, caused widespread destruction in the eastern Mediterranean, potentially contributing to the collapse of the Minoan civilization. This eruption may have even inspired the myth of Atlantis, with its vivid imagery of a prosperous world consumed by disaster. Supervolcanoes remain one of nature's most terrifying forces, capable of wreaking havoc on a global scale. From Mount Toba to Thera, these eruptions have shaped not only the physical world, but also the stories we tell to make sense of devastation. Could the apocalyptic imagery of fire and darkness, seen in cultures across the globe, stem from shared memories of volcanic events? As we continue to examine these myths, the connections between real disasters and human storytelling become impossible to ignore. Throughout history, natural disasters have shaped how humans imagine the end of the world. For ancient civilizations, events like earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions weren't just random. They were seen as divine warnings or cosmic punishment. Without modern science to explain these catastrophes, people turned to myths to process the chaos and find meaning in destruction. Volcanic eruptions, for example, left a lasting mark on human imagination. The eruption of Santorini around 1600 BCE devastated the Minoan civilization and may have inspired the myth of Atlantis, a thriving world swallowed by disaster. Similarly, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE, which buried Pompeii in ash, could easily have been interpreted as divine judgment by the people of the time. Earthquakes, too, carried apocalyptic significance. In ancient Greece, they were believed to be the work of Poseidon, god of the sea and earthquakes, whose wrath shook the very foundations of the earth. Think of it as the ancient version of blaming Mercury in retrograde, except with literal earth-shattering consequences. Mesoamerican myths went even further, viewing earthquakes as markers of the end of previous worlds. These stories didn't just explain the unexplainable, they reflected a profound cultural understanding of cyclical destruction and renewal. What ties these myths together is their ability to offer hope. Even after the most devastating disasters, they often tell of a rebirth, floodwaters receding to reveal fertile land, or a new world emerging from fire and ash. For ancient peoples, these myths were more than explanations. They were survival tools, a way to believe in the possibility of a brighter future. Could these shared themes of destruction and rebirth explain why apocalyptic myths appear in cultures across the world? As we've seen, natural disasters weren't just moments of terror, they were moments that united humanity in the stories we told to endure and rebuild. Apocalyptic myths reveal how humanity has grappled with chaos and catastrophe throughout history. From the Mayans to the Norse and the biblical revelation, these stories reflect our greatest fears, but they also offer hope. Even in the most destructive myths, there is always the promise of renewal. Here's the astonishing connection we've uncovered: the volcanic eruption of 536 CE, one of the most catastrophic events in human history, likely shaped apocalyptic legends across the globe. This eruption sent volcanic ash into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for over a year and triggering a volcanic winter. Crops failed, famines spread, and societies from Europe to Central America were thrown into turmoil. The Norse Fimbulwinter, described as years of unrelenting cold and darkness, may echo this event. Even Mayan myths of apocalyptic darkness could reflect its devastating impact. A single disaster left ripples in human imagination, creating myths that transcended cultures and continents. But these stories aren't just about endings. They are testaments to humanity's ability to endure, adapt, and rebuild. Across time and cultures, we've transformed real catastrophes into powerful stories of survival and renewal, reminding us that destruction is never the final chapter. The myths we tell reveal more than just our fears. They reflect our shared humanity and our enduring hope for renewal. So, what other secrets lie hidden in the myths we tell? Let us know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this journey through apocalyptic myths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to keep exploring the wonders of the past with us. Humanity's endless curiosity and resilience may be the greatest story of all. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep the flame of curiosity burning bright.